Órale! Bienvenidos and welcome to the Familia FFB podcast. This is your host, Jorge Martin, Familia. It's Wednesday night, November 9. It's week 10. Familia, it is happening. We are 5 weeks from the fantasy football playoffs in most leagues. Some leagues, it's even closer. So this is the nitty-gritty time, make sure you are liking and subscribing Familia FFB so that you can get these shows all the time when you're ready. Oh, Familia, just get in there because make sure you're liking and subscribing. Also, please make sure that when you go to fantasypoints.com that you use the promo code 22familia10 22 Familia 10 when you do it in Spanish, and you get some of the best fantasy minds out there. I mean, you get John Hansen, Joe Dolan, Tom Brawley, Scott Barrett, Graham Barfield, Wes Huber. I mean, just you've seen my stuff in there. So make sure you're going in there when you go to fantasypoints.com. You get 10% off the already reduced price at 25% off because part of the season's gone. So Familia, get in there and you'll see my stuff in there. Also want to welcome in a return invitado, volver as we would sing in certain parts of Mexico. I mean, he's just become such a good amigo in the industry. He's been on the show a few times. I've relied on him very much when it comes to zero RB strategy, which was one of my favorite off-season episodes. Shout out to Calvin at Calvin and Hobby out there, mi amigo, Cal Shoemake. He's also one of the main guys at Champions Round, and I'm going to let him tell you about the wonderful app that they've developed, and I hope you sign up for it because we're going to be partnering with them. He's also a great resource when it comes to college football, as he was boots on the ground at the Senior Bowl last year. Got some great intel, and I think he even got a picture with Howie Roseman. So he's just one of the great people. Welcome to the guy I like to call El Aguila, Eagle Dan Turner. Dan, welcome.
That might have been the best intro I've ever gotten in my life. So thank you for that. All right. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited to come back on.
Oh, always glad to have you back on. And always glad to have Dame Overboard in the house. Muchas gracias. Thank you for shouting me out yesterday with the FYF crew. That was always a lot of fun. Until Jay Felicio kind of caught me on the last question, so that's all right. But Dan, I'd love for you to tell the Familia and the audience about Champions Round, because I mean you've developed a YouTube channel, got a nice little following there, but it's more. But by the way, if you're not subscribing, make sure you're subscribing. But can you tell us about the app that's just launched, which is just really, really cool?
All right. So we have an app. We call it Micro Fantasy Sports. It's kind of in between season-long fantasy and daily fantasy, where we have a couple of new games. One of them is called Sunday's Best, where you pick a quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end that only plays on Sunday. And you basically pick them in a draft, and whoever scores the most points wins. We developed it kind of like, people like myself who are doing really badly in their home, like redraft leagues or whatever, they're 2-7 or 3-6, whatever. And, once you get down by that much during the year, you kind of lose hope, whatever. So this is a game where you can come back in, get that rush of drafting again, and try to, beat your friends up, which is really the key point in fantasy. So that's a really good game. We also have Daily Dozen, where you get 12 prop bets. If you get 7 prop bets right, you get your money back. If you get all 12 right, you win $1,200. So it's a fun game. We have a good mix of free games and pay games. So it's not something where you have to pay if you want to join up. But I definitely would recommend doing so, as we also have some new stuff coming down the pipeline for the holidays. So it's a really exciting time for Champions Round, and we're really excited to be here.
I tell you, it's and I'm so glad to be joining the crew. It's going to be.
So are we.
I'm pumped. One of the great compadres of the show, Run Boys Robbie Johnson. I know he's joined. I mean, that to me tells me that it's something that's going to be great. And when it comes to that, so when people set this up and the games that are going to be coming up, because I mean the games are going to be crazy, and I think there's going to be more island games. Is that going to make it a lot more fun for people playing, with those different island games?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we try to make it so there's something for everyone, where it's not just a one game. We have 3, 4, 5 games, and with both the free and the paid options, there's something for everybody. You can join public leagues if you can make it like your own game and invite your friends. So we really try to make it so as many people as possible can enjoy the app in whichever way they want.
Oh, Familia, make sure you're going. I downloaded the app and you go to Champions Round, get in there. It is, I mean, I think it's really going to be something that's going to take over. I mean, it's going to get a great share of the industry coming up. And I love being a part of it. Oh, so I wanted to ask kind of like, looking at the season, already, you're my amigo, one of my 2-0 RB guys. Also, Kevin, I don't know if you know Kevin Tompkins is also.
I do. Yes.
Yeah, he's also
part of people.
Yes, very much. I learned that part of the brotherhood. So everybody's had hits and misses. I mean, on my 0 RB teams, Jamar Chase was one of my misses. It was a hit until he got hurt, but
right.
So I'm calling again. So what have been some of the hits and misses for you this year?
Well, I think one of the hits of mine that I talked about a little bit previously in my own show, that's probably the best hit I'm ever going to get, is Dameon Pierce. Yes. Someone, like you said, I was down at the Senior Bowl, me and Stephanie Smalls. We saw then that, he was performing really well against, some top senior competition. And I loved him ever since. And, he's turned out to be exactly probably even better than even I thought he was going to be. He's taken that Texan running back job and he's, ran away with it, no pun intended. So I'm really proud of the fact that we got in on that early and turned out all right. For a miss, though, especially for me personally, someone that I thought would take out that next step is Hunter Renfrow. I think that, after the season he had last year where, he pretty much came out of nowhere and had a great season, I thought with Devontae Adams that, all the coverage would go to Adams and he'd be able to, secure all like the underneath routes and everything like that. And it just hasn't turned out that way. I mean, the whole Raider offense has not performed up to what a bunch of us have thought it could be. So that's really a big miss for me. And another miss that started off, correct, but has ended up really bad is Justin Fields. I really thought that Fields wasn't going to be a good fantasy quarterback in the beginning because of his struggles last year, and even going into the beginning of this year. But right after that bye week, whatever Chicago did seems to have unlocked him as a premier fantasy asset at QB. So that's something that I really didn't see happening. So that's definitely something that I have to. That's a mea culpa on me for missing that.
So a few weeks ago, I had Jerry Hairston Jr., former Baltimore Oriole, Dodger, Padre, several teams. I think he played for 7 major league teams. He's a dyed-in-the-wool Chicago Bears fan, and he was talking about that. He was really hoping that the Bears would be following the Eagles, their blueprint with Jalen Hurts last year, and just kind of like concentrating on building him up as a running quarterback, and then just kind of using his legs. And I feel like this in the last 3-4 games, that's when we finally seen that with him. And I was kind of rooting for him, kind of hoping, and just kind of thinking, I don't know if hoping, just with a rookie head coach and a first-time play caller, it was going to be a tough thing. But it looks like they've figured something out with him. It's funny, you talked about Dameon Pierce at the Senior Bowl. That was where when I watched that game, I thought, wow, this guy's different. This guy is different, and I was just hoping that he was going to land somewhere, and he was going to be running unopposed. And I scooped him up all over the place in best ball drafts. I got him in like the 10th round of Scott Fish Bowl. I mean, it's just, oh gosh, I wish I could trade in that in Scott Fish Bowl.
Right. that would have saved my season if we could.
Oh man. Well, it's been a blast. And if Josh Allen doesn't miss any time, it'll be even more of a blast. But we'll see. But yeah, and I'm with you on Hunter Renfrow. I really thought the offense would have looked a lot better. I sometimes wonder if that concussion may have kind of like stuck with him a little bit. And
maybe, but it's not even that. It's I mean, if it was just him and he was performing badly, then I would understand. But other than like, the entire offense just isn't doing well. I mean, Josh Jacobs has been doing well for fantasy purposes, but like Devontae Adams isn't like the Devontae Adams we had in Green Bay. But I'm not saying that Carr is on the same level as Rodgers is, but I expected a little bit more from that offensive line. Is doing good. Darren Waller is just either hurt or like completely missing in action for most of the year. So I think overall, like the Raiders have been more down than a lot of us thought.
Yeah, and we're gonna see if they can figure some things out in the next few weeks, because I mean Josh McDaniels I don't think is going anywhere, and I guess you could always say it takes a year to kind of really get ingrained in a new offense, but Miami's figured things out.
Right.
and they've they added a big time receiver, so I think, and they've only got the head coaches have only one letter difference between the two of them. So.
Yeah, that's not wrong. You're not wrong.
Exactly. So we'll see on that one. So so we're gonna so Familia, we're gonna jump into do something a little bit different, because what I've been doing with Adentro y Afuera is kind of going into grabbing a certain number of guys, but we've had longer intros, so we're kind of cutting the intro a little bit shorter, and then kind of going into each one of the games. So we're going to go to all the games. We've got all the we've still got buys, 4 teams on bye this week, but we're going to start off with the Thursday night football game, and we'll talk about as we go through, we're going to say whether we're adentro, whether we're in, or afuera, whether we're out on the players. So Thursday night football, we got the Atlanta Falcons at Carolina. Atlanta is favored by 3 points. It's a 44-point over/under. By the way, everybody, home underdogs were 6-0 last week, so against the spread. So remember that. One of the things that I also noticed, I was looking at kind of the weather reports in the different places. We're starting to see the colder temperatures this week. Last week they were kind of like unseasonably warm. A lot of games in the 60s and 70s, but now you're seeing, this is the first week we're seeing games in the 30s, and this one's in Carolina. Possibility of a little bit of rain in the 60s, and we got Cordarrelle Patterson back. And he was on the field for 24 61 plays last week. First game back. Dan, are you fired? Are you ready to? Do you think he's ready for a bigger role this week?
I think so. I think that him being back, he's going to have fresh legs, especially as we get later on into the season. So I think that after last week when he came back and pretty much started off where he left off when he got hurt. I think that he'll be good. I think that Algier will have a role. I think that, yes, you didn't draft the guy to not give him, some carries, and it's not like the season is going somewhere, because it really isn't, for being honest. So I would say Patterson and Algier, split carries. But I think Patterson would be more effective on like the passing downs. So I really think that, with him being back, I think he can jump right back into maybe not as high of a ceiling as he had before he got hurt, but definitely still have a role for your team in fantasy.
Yeah, and one of the things that I noticed was you mentioned the tandem that Algier will still be involved. He had 11 touches last week. Algier and Caleb Huntley went for 176 yards in week 8 against and when they had that shootout with the Panthers. And of course, the Panthers got blown away by Joe Mixon last week, which I hope you were safe from Joe Mixon last week.
I was. I avoided him everywhere. Thank God.
I thought Herms, for another amigo of the show, he posted a safe from Joe Mixon, so that was hilarious. I think this is I think Patterson, you got to fire it up, because this game it was a shootout last time. I don't know if it'll be a shootout this time, especially if rain starts to play a part into it, but I think Patterson's going to be a big part of this offense. I was going to put pass catchers on here, but I think it's just useless until we get into that, until we actually see them getting more than 5 targets a game. On the other side, I think we just saw Deonta Foreman kind of like heckling Jekyll and Hyde. He had 26 carries for 118 yards and 3 touchdowns against Atlanta 2 weeks ago, and then seven carries for 23 yards last week, in that blowout loss to Cincinnati. I mean, game script was a part of that, but game script could be similar in this game next, from 2 weeks ago between these two teams that don't have great defenses. How much confidence did Foreman's injury. I mean, not injury. His rough game last week. Did it get shaken, or you feel like you're starting him this week?
I'm definitely starting him. I probably feel after like the top tier backs like McCaffrey. I mean, Foreman's the guy that I trust probably more than anyone. Honestly, I think it's been 2 weeks since he had that that great game, that 30+ game in fantasy against the Falcons. So even no one should expect that again because that was a crazy game. But I think if you go between the average between the Bengals game and the previous Falcons game is somewhere get you somewhere between 15 to 17 points. So I'm definitely plugging him in and starting him without hesitation this week.
Yeah, and the Falcons giving up 119.3 scrimmage yards since week 5. Eckler took them for 71 scrimmage yards last week and 2 TDs. I think Foreman has everything ready for him. By the way, the scrimmage yard per game was to run the running back position only. We had a question from Dame Overboard. This is an interesting one. She wants to get CPAT in her lineup.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Jones, replace one of Aaron Jones, Chris Godwin, Devonta Smith, or DJ Moore.
Oof.
I'm not replacing Devonta Smith. I'm not replacing Devonta Smith. It
really depends on Aaron Jones' health, because if that ankle injury keeps acting up, the Packers might just lean on AJ Dillon for that game. I know the test came back negative. His X-rays came back negative, but I would watch out for that. See, it's tough because with DJ Moore, he's been coming up lately. He's been doing really well. Godwin. I know this doesn't help, but I would probably sit Devonta Smith, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah. It really seems that as of late that AJ Brown has taken over the wide receiver room for Philly. Devonta Smith has been solid, but his last couple of games, he hasn't really been doing that well fantasy-wise. He's had 7 and 4 points his last 2 games. So, I mean, is it possible he'll have a big game? Yeah, but I'd probably replace Smith depending on Jones's health. If Jones isn't healthy, I replace Jones.
I'm looking at this one. I 100% I agree with you with Jones. I lean a little bit toward Godwin just because I look at we're going to talk about this in a second, but because I think Tom Brady's going to have a tough time passing on Sunday. And we'll talk about that revived Seahawks pass rush so I think it could be a flip a coin, but yeah, Aaron Jones may make the decision for us.
Right. Yeah. The thing with Godwin is he's been so consistent. Like every week he scored at least 10 points for 7 straight weeks now. So I can't take him out just because of his consistency. So that I mean it's a good problem to have. I mean all 4 of them are really good players. But yeah, it's really a toss up. It really depends on Seattle's defense has been doing really good lately, so it's a bad matchup fantasy wise for Godwin. So in that respect, I agree with you on it could be dicey.
Let's see, awesome. Yeah, love it. Yeah, hey, you know what?
We're happy to help.
Happy to help. Happy to argue, and when it comes down to it. And by the way, special shout out to Alberto. ¿Cómo estás? Hello. Thank you for joining. Yeah, keep pumping in the questions in the chat, Familia. So we got the next one. We're going to London. So that's the game that we were just talking about. We got it's 6-3 Seattle Seahawks, which none of us expected, against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 4-5. Also, none of us expected. Tampa Bay is 2.5-point favorites, 44.5-point over under, 50 degrees expected in clear weather. I'm kind of looking at the Seahawks are considered the road team. I'm really looking at Tyler Lockett this week. He's had 41.4 snaps from the slot this year. Cooper Kupp just took them for 8 catches, 127 yards, and a touchdown last week, they being the Buccaneers.
Mm-hmm.
And that was after Chase Claypool and DJ Moore did a lot of damage against them in the slot. Um, I, you know, I know it kind of like differs between DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, but how does this make you feel, knowing these slot numbers, considering the fact that that could be Tyler Lockett is the player this week?
I mean, I like it for Lockett. I mean, Tampa Bay obviously has an issue with slot receivers, and Lockett, kind of like Godwin, has been one of those players where he's just been so consistent throughout the year. There hasn't really been maybe like one or two bad games from him. So I would expect him to continue to do well in this game. I think, Geno Smith and him have begun to form a solid rapport as the season's gone along. So I would really if you have Tyler Lockett, I would start him for this week.
By the way, thank you, Kenny, for reminding me. The game is in Germany. I keep going to the fact that it's in Europe. It's in London. No, it's in Germany, in Munich. I probably just had a little flashback to the one night I spent in Munich at Oktoberfest, and it's one of the best nights I don't remember. So. Yes, one of the best nights. There was a lot of hats, a lot of singing, a lot of screaming, and a lot of beer. So beautiful night. So yes, hopefully people enjoying the NFL football in Germany this weekend. On the other side, Tom Brady he's gonna danke. Danke. Gracias. Oh gosh, you're reminding me. Yeah, we had German beer, and we were at a big table with some Italians and Australians, and just had one of the great times. My wife and I, 20 some years ago. So Tom Brady, last 3 games, 290 passing yards, 325, 200 and 280 passing yards. So good numbers overall.
Mm-hmm.
Hasn't looked pretty though. I mean, the defensive lines have been kind of breaking through the interior of the offensive line of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And as we've always heard, to get to Brady, you got to go up the middle. Going up against the Seahawks defense that's got 19 sacks in the last 4 games. I'm worried about there being too much pressure on El Senor Brady in this one, because the Seahawks are starting to really play some good defense after having a rough game against the Jared Goff on week 4.
Yeah, I think that I would sit Brady. He's definitely an afuera for this game for me. He's only had 1 game this year with multiple touchdowns, which is crazy when I looked it up.
Yeah.
So I mean, the Seahawks defense is on a tear right now. It is on fire. The offensive line of the Bucs isn't, we all know isn't as good as it used to be. So I just think they're a team that's in kind of a transition year, I think. So they're not as good as we thought they could be. So I really believe in the Seahawks defense. And I just don't think that Brady will. I think it'll continue where he'll be okay, but definitely not, what we expect out of Tom Brady until recently.
I was on the on Discord for fantasy points today, and I got a question. I got multiple questions about the dynasty value for Chris Godwin.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it's very interesting because we don't know Brady's future beyond this point. They don't really have a successor in behind them. Where would you put Godwin's value at this point, knowing that people are going to look to trade for him, and but really with this quarterback situation being uncertain?
I'd probably put it at like a back end first rounder. He's still only 26. He's had quarterbacks that aren't Brady, and he still performed with them. So I'm not really worried about that as much. But I mean, he's just still so young and he's so talented. He just has so much of his career left. I can't, ask for less than that if I were, trying to trade for him.
I think you're right. And as we saw this year in Seattle, supposed journeyman quarterback, and now all of a sudden, you're still getting solid seasons from Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. So it could be very much it really could be much of the same. You bet on, I guess you always do bet on talent, even at the wide receiver position, and hope that they figure it out. I mean, I really doubt. I forget what Kyle Trask is the backup there, so I don't have a feeling Kyle Trask is gonna be the starter next year.
I don't think so. No.
So let's go to the next game, a game with a lot of intrigue. Minnesota 7-1 at Buffalo 6-2. Just, I mean, it's a heavyweight title match, but it might not be as heavyweight as we thought. It's Buffalo is a 3.5-point favorite after having been a 5.5-point favorite just yesterday. 43.5-point over under. It's going to be a cold game, 36 degrees expected at game time, a little overcast. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. I mean, Josh Allen what's your confidence level that he's going to play?
A 3.
Yeah.
I think that if it were me and I was running the Bills, you're in first place now in the AFC East. If you sit Allen a game, that gives him that much more recovery time for the rest of the year, because your goals are not, beat the Vikings in week 10. Your goals are, we need to get the Super Bowl and win. So what gets you there? What action gives you more, gives you more odds to get you there? Case Keenum is a decent backup. That's won games, in this league. All the talent is still there. Diggs is still there. Davis. So I would think that it would behoove them to sit Allen for at least this week. So that's where my 3 comes in. I think that they're going to err on the side of caution. Like organizationally, they realize that they have bigger goals than this week 10 game, and then maybe play him next week.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, this could kind of be. Remember I think it was 3 years ago, the Patrick Mahomes knee injury that everybody thought was season ending, and he missed 2 games, and then took him to the Super Bowl and a victory that year. Mm-hmm. I think this kind of reminds me of that injury. Amigo of the show, Dr. Edwin Porras, he had a podcast episode earlier today where he talked about the fact, and he's now a physical therapist for the Minnesota Twins, so he sees UCL injuries in pitchers, and he said that it's much harsher an injury on pitchers than it is quarterbacks, because there's the UCL is much more torqued in the pitching motion than in the throwing motion for the quarterback. What he thinks is what he said is he could play this week in pain, so that's the best case scenario. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily making it worse, but that he sees the worst case scenario being that he misses between 2 and 4 weeks. And Allen had an injury, a UCL injury 4 years ago where he missed 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if this one was not as bad, same, whatever. But I think when you say 3, it's the same. One player in particular, because I think when backup quarterbacks come in, they lock in on the wide receiver 1. So I think Stephon Diggs is going to get. I don't think he's going to may not have a monster game, but I think he's still going to have a game. Mm-hmm. Gabe Davis, who's been kind of up and down, any confidence level in him this week? I mean, he has not topped in the last 4 games. He has 6, 7, and 5 targets. And the Vikings, though, they've been you've been able to throw on them 275 passing yards since week 5.
Yeah. I have I give him like a 6 in confidence for Davis. I think that Keenum is not going to be able to run around as much as Josh Allen would. So that takes, some of those rushing attempts will turn into passing attempts and targets for the receivers. And I think he's going to lean on them a lot more than, Josh Allen would ad lib a lot. Obviously, we know that. Case Keenum can't do that. So I would think that there'd be more like pure passing attempts. As well as, leaning on the running game a little bit more. So that equals more targets. So I think that Davis gets between, 5 to 7 targets for this game.
I could see that. Yeah. And Blaine Gabbert definitely catching strays. So shrapnel on
He deserves them.
Yeah, how many dynasty teams did people used high picks on him in dynasty leagues? So, since we're in a laughing mood, let's talk about that shirtless Kirk Cousins. How do you like that?
That was funny.
That was good.
That was good.
I think Adam Schefter doing it better, which people want to laugh on him, but I'm like, you know what? Schefter and I are about the same age. I'm like, he's rocking shirtless. He's still looking good. I'm like, hey, you know what? Give it up for him. Give it up for him.
Absolutely.
So all that Peloton work is paying off. So gotta love it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, we got Kirk Cousins playing on the road in Buffalo. Now, one of the things I looked at, his home road splits, as usual, are pretty vast. He's thrown 6 touchdowns against 5 interceptions on the road with a 61% completion rate, and he's got 7 touchdowns, 1 interception at home with a 68.7 completion rate. He's thrown about 131 more yards than he has at home than he has on the road. It's a cold weather game. I'm always wary of dome teams going into cold weather, and this is their first cold weather game of the year. As we said, it's going to be about 36 degrees that day. Only Mahomes 338 yards in a shootout, and Kenny Pickett 327 yards in garbage time have hit 300 yards against the Bills. I'm not liking this one for Cousins this week. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think that it's put in place where it's going to be a bad game for him. I think that the defense knows that it's going to be a lot more on their shoulders now with Josh Allen not being 100% if he even plays at all. So it's definitely going to have to be on the defense to step it up. And something that, hasn't really been said, that this could be the game where Tre'Davious White comes back after being injured for most of the year. So getting that number 1 cornerback to go against Justin Jefferson and Thielen and TJ Hawkinson with that talented group, that's something that can't be understated. So I really think that the Buffalo defense is going to make it their mission to try to shut down as much as possible the Vikings offense, making it easier for the Buffalo offense to score some points and square the game away.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the Bills have 23 sacks on the season with a 21.2 pressure rate. It's they've got that great pass rush with Von Miller. I think they're going to be in Cousins' grill a lot. And then you saw it, your hometown Eagles, when Vikings were flying high, they win on that Monday Night Football game, and they just got lit up. So I think there's going to be some of that this week. Let's go to Chi-Town, Windy City. We got this game is also going to be played in cold weather, but no rain or snow in the forecast. Detroit 2-6 at Chicago 3-6. The Bears are 2.5-point favorites. A 48.5 point over under. When do we expect that in Chi-Town? What a difference a month makes,
right?
Oh man! But now, and speaking of the difference, is this Jamal Williams' backfield? Because of Swift's shoulder injury, he's the last 3 weeks, 16 touches, 13 touches, 24 touches last week with 81 rushing yards last week. Swift has 15 total touches in 2 games since his return. Bears are number 27 against running backs, with 137.6 scrimmage yards per game. This is a DraftKings one, 5,900 on DraftKings. That looks like a good price for him.
Deal. That is a deal. I love him, honestly. I've loved Jamal Williams. He did this last year too when Swift wasn't available. He took that backfield and he performed, and he's just done that this year. He's done it. He's really quiet. The quietest running back 16 I've ever heard of in my entire life of playing fantasy. So like you said, he's been getting more carries. The Chicago defense is not good against the run, and I expect Detroit to try to run the ball. So I really like Williams this week.
And it just everything's just shaping up for him in that game. So on the other side, wow! I mean, you talked about it already. Justin Fields, what does he do for an encore? I luckily had him on a couple of super flex teams, so I started him. So love that. I mean, just 178 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns total, 3 passing, 2 to Cole Kmet. I actually had a DraftKings lineup that scored over 200 points with that.
Nice.
but I didn't put it in the right tournament, so I only won $6. So
Oh man, oh no,
yeah, it was
that's terrible.
no, it was bad. But but the thing that they've discovered, and you mentioned it, they're running the ball more since week 6. Justin Fields has 12 attempts, 14, 8, and 15. 15 being last week. And we could look at your Eagles, where Jalen Hurts in the opener ran for 90 yards against them, and they against them being the Lions, and they haven't really faced a rushing quarterback since. And on top of it, they're giving up 267 passing yards since week 5. I mean, I think it being a home game, I want to get him, make sure he's in my lineup on this one. And I might actually look at this being something where I look to play Fields and Williams in a same DFS lineup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like you said, I mean, the Chicago seemed to, go back to 2021 and see how the Eagles, handled Hurts in his first year starting, and they figured out that would really help Justin Fields. And the Lions are really bad against quarterbacks. I think they're like 28th against quarterbacks in fantasy. So I would I expect Justin Fields to continue his destruction of fantasy football for everyone. He scored over 20 points in 5 straight weeks. Over 30 points in 3 straight weeks. So I mean, he's just been like insane, and I just don't expect the Detroit to be the ones to stop that.
I really don't. Here we go. We got a question. Fields over Tua this week.
I mean, that's just like, that's 4 quarters or $1. It's really what you're asking there. I mean, either one. I think Tua's playing Cleveland, who's decent. I mean,
Tua's home, so
Tua's home.
Both of them are home.
Yeah, I mean, both have great upside. Tua wasn't a slacker last week either. He scored a bunch of points too. I mean, it's really personal preference, honestly. I mean, it really can't go wrong. I would probably, in terms of strict overall, who has the better matchup, it's probably Fields. But Tua does have Tyreek Hill and Waddle. So, I mean, I would, whatever you think, whatever quarterback you like best, you really can't go wrong with this question. Either way, honestly. But I would lean, just in terms of straight matchup and how he's been performing recently, Fields, which I never thought I'd actually say. So, but here we are.
It's November 10th. It's November 9th. So that's what is happening. Yeah. The growth has happened. I really hope that they invest in the offensive line like the Eagles have, and put a wall in front of him, because I think that's one of the things that's really holding him back. And if Chase Claypool or Darnell Mooney could turn into AJ Brown, or even Devonta Smith, even both of them turning into Devonta Smith type of guys, that'd be really good. But it's definitely, yeah. I think I'd lean barely Fields just because of the rushing upside,
right?
But gosh, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they both went for 30 points this week.
Again, Dame, a great problem to have.
Yeah. So we got this one, Chubb over Tua. Is this a DFS one? I mean, I'm sorry, a super flex. Could this be a super flex question?
Yeah, it's probably super flex. I would not do that. No.
No,
No, Tua's been performing too well, no matter how good Chubb has been fantastic. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not, the way Tua's playing now, I'm not benching him for any non-quarterback in a super flex spot.
No, absolutely not. I 100% agree. I love Chubb. But yeah, you know what? Tua can put up a 30-point game without any rushing. So he could run for like 10 yards and put up a 30-point game. And Chubb, he has to score like 3 touchdowns to get a 30-point game. And I mean, the Dolphins aren't great against the run, but I don't think he's scoring 30 points. All right, let's go to Tennessee, which one of the lowest over-unders, 39 points. We got Denver at Tennessee. Tennessee is 3-point favorites, as I mentioned, 39-point over-under. To me, on the Broncos side, what has happened with Cortland Sutton? 6 catches for 50 yards over his last 3 games. I know one of those was the Brett Rippon game, but man, I mean, it just he was looking so good the first 4 or 5 games of the season, and then just the last 3 games is just has practically disappeared. And I mean, any feeling on this one? I kind of want to sit him.
Yeah, I think I would sit him too. I think that's something that we've seen a lot of this year with Kyle Pitts struggling is that no matter what name the player has, if they're not performing, you have to put them on your bench. And we know you drafted Cortland Sutton High to be that guy, but he's just not being that guy for you. So you have to put it kind of like the eagle to the side and stop looking at the name and just look at the production. And he's not producing, like you said. He just 6 catches for 50 yards in 3 games is horrific number. So he's not winning you any fantasy games, and that's really the point. So go find another receiver to plug into a spot, because until he gets out of whatever funk he's currently in, you can't trust him.
Yeah, I've got in my Familia League. I've got Sutton, and I'm sitting him. I've got several guys. I think gosh, uh, I'm sitting him for Amari Cooper and Chris Olave.
Yeah,
And
yeah, absolutely. Easy putting those two over him.
yeah,
Not even a
yeah,
question in my mind.
yeah, and plus the Titans have been beaten up by Juju Smith-Schuster and Paris Campbell.
Mhm.
And so, maybe this is more of a Jerry Judy game if they do any passing, which I don't know how much they're going to be able to do of anything. I mean, because of the guy on the other side, number 22. I mean, gosh, I mean, Derrick Henry, what a run he's on. I
Mhm.
mean, 30 carries for 128 yards, 32 for 219 and 2, 17 for 115 and 2. Now, you being a zero RB, zealot,
Right.
I know you have no Derrick Henry. I have no Derrick Henry.
I don't have any Derrick Henry at
Yeah.
all.
So, but
uh,
how he has just erased any doubts about injury has been utterly amazing. And the Broncos gave up, in week 8 before their bye, they gave up 156 yards to Travis Etienne and 155 yards total to the Jets. I mean, they're really good against the pass, but I think the Broncos are ready to get gouged again.
absolutely. Derrick Henry has been phenomenal. I mean, he's just been so consistent. It's almost boring now. I mean, you hear about like Christian McCaffrey's and like the Dalvin Cooks and the Jonathan Taylors, and here's Derrick Henry coming in year after year and just slaughters people in fantasy, and he's doing it again this year. And everyone has been predicting him to slow down, and he just hasn't. If anything, he's gotten even better. So I mean, zero RB or not, I have to tip my cap to that kind of consistent production, especially at running back when it seems everyone else is either not being good or hurt or something like that. He just keeps chugging along, giving you 20 plus fantasy points every single week, and just like ho hum, comes in, does his job, and leaves. So I think it's just been incredible how. And I really don't think it's been talked enough about how consistent he's been, year over year and game over game for running back. And the fact that he isn't, in that Jonathan Taylor, McCaffrey tier, he should be. He absolutely should be. So, my hat's off to him.
And he's one of the guys who's worth paying up for on
Yeah.
DFS this week, because I mean, yeah, this is just a smash spot for him. I mean, it's 8,300 on DraftKings. Definitely something to spend.
Money well spent.
Yeah.
Money well spent, definitely.
So we got an interesting game this one, because we got the Fabio football, as I like to call him, Trevor Lawrence. Love that hair. Going to Kansas City for the first time to meet up with Patrick Mahomes. And the Chiefs have, and he has only one 300-yard game this season in Week 7 against the Giants. But going to the cold and noisy air, it's going to be 36 degrees game time. Noisy Arrowhead Stadium, with the only opposing quarterback to go over 300 yards being Jimmy G, doing it in garbage time, in games at Kansas City. I don't have a lot of confidence. I do like some of the progression that Trevor Lawrence has been, and actually, you being very much a dynasty guy and someone who really looks at the college game. What are you thinking of Trevor Lawrence's growth, but also looking at this week?
Right. So for this week, I don't like him at all. I think it's a bad matchup in Kansas City. They're trying to get that 1 seed, and they should really lean on ETN more than Lawrence in this game anyway. As far as dynasty, I've been pleasantly surprised with how he's done. I think that he came in last year with all that hype of being like the best quarterback prospect ever, and then Urban Meyer ruined him for a year. But I really think that Doug Peterson has done a really good job of rebuilding not just his mechanics, but also his confidence. His body language was terrible last year. He seemed lost. And he doesn't do that anymore. They did a good job of, getting weapons for him, getting Christian Kirk and Zay Jones and Evan Ingram, and then even this year trading for Calvin Ridley. So they're giving him the pieces that's needed to perform well. And, just give him another year or two. And I really think we'll start seeing, the kind of quarterback that we thought we were getting, last year when they picked him as high as they did.
Yeah, I think this could actually be kind of almost like his rookie year all over again, kind of like a redo on his rookie year.
Right.
And next year is when you see the jump. And I think we could see the jump. I think we're going to see a further jump from Justin Fields. And I think we're still, putting out a candle for some other guys from that draft class. Also, hello to Mr. Scampers and DJ Moore over. DJ Moore over Cortland Sutton. 100% this week. Mm-hmm. Yeah. After what DJ Moore did to Atlanta a couple weeks ago. Yes.
Absolutely.
And totally agree that no allegiance to the Titans, but Derrick Henry DH number 22, definitely one of the favorite players this year. I mean, just I love seeing that. I always liked them dating back to the Alabama days before he was the featured guy. So I'm glad to see him doing that, to kind of defying the odds on that one. Absolutely. So on the other side of the Chiefs Jaguars, one of the interesting things, I was very down before the season on Juju Smith-Schuster, just with a couple of injury plagued years. I was starting to wonder if he was going to get a shot, and here he is, 6 games with 8+, having earned 8+ targets with a high of 12 last week, being week 9. And these are his receiving totals the last 3 games: 113 yards, 124 yards, and 88 yards. The Jags are number 25 against the wide receiver, giving up 154.4 receiving yards per game since week 5. I think this is another good matchup for Juju. I mean, you're obviously Kelsey, and I don't think you're touching the running backs, but I think Juju is a safe pick this week.
Yeah, I mean, I took Juju, and a lot of people took Juju in the later rounds. Going to Kansas City, everyone that goes to Kansas City, is immediately fantasy relevant until they prove otherwise. But a lot of people, like you said, were down on him. Coming out of Pittsburgh, like, could he be, a productive receiver without, an Antonio Brown like guy, next to him? And while he hasn't, been performing up to the height he had in Pittsburgh, he's definitely been, he's growing into that reliable guy on the outside that Mahomes needs. You can't, just be Kelsey. As it's shown, you could take Kelsey away. Teams are trying to take Kelsey away and daring anyone else to beat them. And Juju has, started to show that he could be the guy that steps up and is that beater for teams on the outside. So I definitely think in this game it's a really good matchup for him. Like you said, the Jags are 25th versus receiver, so I really expect Juju to once again have a really good game.
And Mecole Hardman's been getting deep.
Mecole Hardman, my guy, finally. He's starting to show up after all
Year
these
4
years.
Breakout.
My former, yeah. I'm happy that he's showing a little life, and they're using him in creative ways that they should have been all along. But I'm glad to see that he's doing well.
Yes, it's funny. I had him a lot on teams. I started him on a lot of teams because of Mageddon last week, and it paid off all over. I think I started him on like 4 teams because of that, and one of them with a stack with Mahomes. So, muchas gracias, Mecole. Muchas gracias. Keep it going, because I'm going to keep starting you.
Yeah, that's right.
So we touched on this game a second ago, Chubb so we got Cleveland going to Miami. Miami's a 3.5-point favorite, so the 48.5-point over-under. This game's going to be warm. It's going to be around 80 degrees. One of the interesting things that I saw, I was looking at the home road splits for Amari Cooper, and he, in 3 road games, his high total in PPR points was 10.4 PPR points. His worst home game is 14.4 fantasy points with, catching 4 passes, 44 yards and a touchdown. I don't know what's going on, but it seems like Donovan Peoples-Jones is picking up the slack. He's had three good games in the road games. Does this give you some pause? The game being in Miami, or is because this game script could be the Dolphins throwing a lot that just like throw it out, start Cooper?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it nail on the head. It's game script. I mean, the Dolphins are going to score points in this game, a lot of them. Cleveland's going to need to throw to catch up. So no matter, like you're 100% right about the splits. He doesn't do well on the road, but he's just going to be force-fed targets because they're going to have to throw. Also, Peoples-Jones is another back-end flex guy too in this game. So I really expect him to, this will probably be one of his better, if not his best, road game performance in terms of fantasy points for the year, because they're just going to have to, they're going to have to go throw for throw to keep up with, Hill and Waddle.
Well, speaking of Hill and Waddle, let's talk about Hill. I mean, this is more of a one of the plays of the week, because what he's done has gone to a different level somehow. He leaving Mahomes and 1,104 yards. Last week, he became the fastest guy to 1,000 yards receiving in a season, averaging 122.7 receiving yards, which would put him on a pace of 2,085 yards. He would be the first receiver to go over 2,000 yards if he did that. 5 of 9 games over 100 yards. Just amazing usage. I just want to, and one thing to keep in mind, Familia, Denzel Ward may be sitting. But Dan, I want to know, where were you on Tyreek Hill going into the season?
So I thought that he would take a step back, not being.
I did too.
With Mahomes, I thought that without the Kansas City system and without Travis Kelce, that he wouldn't be as good as he was at his peak in Kansas City, and he's been better. He's had, like you said, his 1,100 yards would be great seasons for a lot of receivers. A lot of receivers would love to have a 76 catch 1,100 yard season. Most receivers, and that's what he's done in 9 games. That's just insane to me. And the realistic prospect of getting over 2,000 yards is just like he's unstoppable. You can't stop him. So I don't see, like, he's taking Cooper Kupp's year, fantasy year, and just saying, well, watch this, I can do better. And he's just lapping him. He's lapping everybody in the field. It's been insane. I'm glad I've been completely wrong about how Hill was going to do with Miami, because it's been fun to just watch him just annihilate everyone.
It really has just been a blast. And he's 9,100 on DraftKings this week. He's now above Cooper Kupp in price. I think the one thing, can you imagine if he starts scoring more than 3 touchdowns in the second half of the season, what it's going to do to his numbers? It's going to be ridiculous.
Yeah, instead of 1,000 fantasy points, he'll have 1,500 fantasy points, because that's what we need. Anyone who's facing Hill, that's what they need to hear. He needs to score more, so he buries people more than what he's already done.
He's the RB1, so playing wide receiver,
right? He's the everything one. He's outscoring everybody.
So this next one, Houston 1-6-1 at New York Giants 6-2. Giants are 6.5 point favorites, 40.5 point over under. Weather not expected to be an issue in this one. It's going to be low 50s, 51 degrees. So partly cloudy, so no rain in the forecast. This one, I think, is going to be a one-on-one battle of who can top who between Dameon Pierce and Saquon Barkley. It's just like, I don't think there's any other significant fantasy player in this one.
Nope. This is going to be one of those old school, my running back is better than your running back games. And I think, if obviously you're not sitting either of these running backs, but I really expect big games from both. I think that, both offenses obviously lean on both these guys to make both their engines go. So they're really this is just, as much of a lock as can be for fantasy. I mean, it's going to be these two guys performing well this week.
It really is. Giants did slow down Kenny Walker last week, but I mean Travis Etienne, Kenyon Drake both had big games beforehand, and Saquon is just the guy. He's 20 plus touches in 6 of 8 games. His second in scrimmage yards total behind Henry, and just I mean you start your running backs against the Texans, and it's just I think I would actually I think it'd be a great idea to play both of these guys in some sort of daily fantasy lineup for this week, kind of like grouping them together, because I think it's just
take these 2 guys and then take Hill and then take Justin Fields and win.
Yes,
win everything. You don't need to even put any other players in any of those spots. Just leave them like lowest, dollar
minimum.
amount and minimum, and just go win everything.
Yeah. Oh man! All right, so let's go to Pitt. Let's go to Steel Town. We got New Orleans Saints 3-6 at Pittsburgh 2-6. You got the Saints are 2.5 point road favorites, 40.5 point over under. This one, and I believe you saw. I believe he was at the Senior Bowl. Olave was at the Senior Bowl, was he?
No,
I don't. He might.
No,
he
was. He was injured, I think.
That's right.
He wasn't.
That's right.
Yeah, he wasn't. He wasn't there.
But he's. I mean, the only thing that gives me any pause. I mean, he's basically running unopposed in this one. Michael Thomas is out. Rumblings that Jarvis Landry may be back, but not feeling all the confidence. I mean, the targets are going to him. I think he gets 10 targets. The only thing that gives me a little bit of pause is the first time the Saints are playing in weather this year. And it's only their second outdoor game at all. But Olave in that game at Carolina went for 147 yards on 9 catches.
Right.
Targets are there. AJ Brown lit up the Eagles. I mean, other than the weather, what's the confidence factor in Olave on this one?
95%.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. The quarterback play for the Saints has not been great. Dalton has not been great, and Olave keeps performing anyway. The Steelers are not that good against the pass. In fact, they're actually dreadful. And Olave, with each passing game, it just seems more and more comfortable in the NFL. He's clearly taken over as the Saints' number 1 receiver. So I really expect him to do really well against Pittsburgh this week.
I think so. And Mr. Scampers, you're right. Yeah, I think top 8 was better than it would have been better. You should have told me that at Scott Fishbowl draft.
We were all wrong.
Yeah, we were all wrong. So
they're currently both top 5.
Yeah.
So Hill's 1 and Waddle's 5. So
God bless him.
We were all wrong.
Bless him. To talk about Jarvis Landry. So on the other side, George Pickens. I think this is a sneaky spot for him. Chase Claypool's leaving behind. In the last 4 games, he had 30 targets. So Pickens has had between 6 and 8 targets, weeks 3 to 7. He's had 3 wide receiver 2 finishes in the last 5 games. There is a optimism that I've got for George Pickens coming off the bye week when teams do a little extra homework to get guys open. There's possibly no Marshawn Lattimore again. I really think some of those, a good chunk, maybe even at least half of those targets are going to go to Pickens. The other half going to Deontay Johnson.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think Pickens is starting to establish himself as the guy more on the outside now. I think Pickett likes to look at him. I think they have a solid rapport together. And like you said, the Chase Claypool targets have to go to someone. So I think they do get split between Deontay and Pickens. So he didn't have a good game last game he had when he had 0 points, but I don't think that's going to happen again. I think that that was an aberration. That he should continue to be a solid, flex type wide receiver with the potential to rise up into that, wide receiver 3, low end wide receiver 2 territory as the season goes on.
Yeah, the second half of the season, and plus, further and further away from that injury. I think he's well past a year and a half on that one. So I think he's really shaping up for a big second half. And I think he's got. I was looking, Pittsburgh sneakily the next 4 weeks could have good some good passing defenses. I mean, some good matchups against pass defenses for that could help Pickett and Pickens and Deontay Johnson. So,
Right.
This next one is two of the biggest letdowns of the NFL season. Indianapolis with Jeff Saturday as the head coach, Parks Frazier calling plays. If anybody out there said they predicted this, I'm calling you a mentiroso. No, but I mean, it just Michael Pittman, 15 targets in the last two games with Sam Ellinger. I'm, the only thing that makes me want to start Michael Pittman in this game is the fact that the Raiders are giving up 264 passing yards per game last 5 games. It's just, but I don't like I don't like how this is going to look. But I mean, how crazy how 2022 would it be to have the Colts to go into Vegas and win this game with Jeff Saturday leaving the booth to be the head coach?
Yeah, honestly, at this point, I expect that to happen. Really, like the way this season has gone, I absolutely think that that's what's going to happen. I think that, Pittman has not been up to where we thought he would be when we drafted him way back, at the beginning of the season. But he's still, he's getting targets. He's had 24 targets last 3 games, 15 in the last 2 games. So he's getting the ball thrown to him, and that's really all we can ask for. I think that's going to continue because he's basically the best weapon that they have left. We don't know if Jonathan Taylor is going to play, and if he does, how effective he's going to be, and for how long. So really, I mean, just for a lack of other great options in the passing game, I really think that Pittman will do all right against Las Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, Taylor did return to practice today, but yeah, you just don't know. On the Raiders side, I think you're starting Devontae Adams, but I think the only other player that you're really looking to start is Josh Jacobs. Darren Waller again did not practice today, so Jacobs, his touches the last since week 4, 33, 26, 23, 12, and 20. I mean, he's an RB1, and he's had against this defense that's number 17 against the running back, not horrible, but not the best. I think Jacobs is one of the players to start with confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. He's definitely gotten into that. You start him every week. He's earned that trust this year in fantasy. I think that he has a really good matchup this week. Like you said, the Colts number 17 against running backs. So they hiring Jeff Saturday. I mean, let's be honest. They pretty much packed the year in. Like they're not going to go anywhere. So I expect that the Raiders to be able to end Josh Jacobs with Waller being out. I expect them to lean on the run and Devontae Adams. So I think Jacobs is going to have a really good game this week.
And that was one thing. You just reminded me of something. I was listening to Rich Eisen's show, and Zach Kiefer, amigo of the show, he's been on a couple times, and a couple times with us and a couple times with Rich Eisen. But hey, awesome combo. But he pointed out he wouldn't be surprised if at some point they just shut down Jonathan Taylor just to keep him healthy.
Yeah, I would. I wouldn't bring it back now. I would just give the ball to Deion Jackson and call it a season for Jonathan Taylor. There's no reason to put more tread on his tires in a season that isn't going anywhere.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, let's go to Lambeau Field, the frozen tundra Lambeau Field, which is expected to be 33 degrees, so pretty close to frozen. But I think Tony Pollard is going to heat it up. I mean, we're going to get Zeke back, but I don't know if we expect 157 scrimmage yards and 3 touchdowns like last time, but he could get 10, 12, 13 touches, and the Packers are giving up some yardage to the running backs, 158.8 scrimmage yards since per game since week 5. I'm liking this matchup for Pollard.
I mean, Pollard is pretty much in the Hall of Fame for zero running back. Guys like myself, where he finally, got the chance without Zeke to perform, and he absolutely blew everyone away with the 157 and 3 touchdowns. So I think Zeke is probably going to play this game. I think he's healed enough from his injury. How much he's going to play, I don't know, but I think it would really behoove the Cowboys to continue leaning on Pollard, who's proven that he can handle the workload and is easily much more explosive than Zeke could ever hope to be at this point in their respective careers. So I really think that they should, lean on Pollard. And if you have Pollard, you should lean on him too in fantasy, because he should be having a really good game as well.
Absolutely, absolutely, and they've given up some yardage to receiving backs too. The Packers have, so DeAndre Swift and James Cook have both gotten some yardage against them. On the other side, I didn't love watching what I saw from Aaron Rodgers last week. I mean, it's just not fun. I mean, he was pressured on 12 of 43 passes last week, threw a lot of dirt balls to avoid getting hit, so that he only got sacked once. But the 3 picks, I mean, and now you've got Dallas on the other side with Micah Parsons, and they're leading the NFL in sacks. I just think he's going to be seeing a lot of pressure this week. The offensive line I don't see the offensive line doing much of a job to keep him, clean.
Yeah, I would not be starting Aaron Rodgers this week if you have any other available options. At this point, like I said, like earlier in the show, you can't look at the name anymore.
Yeah.
He just, he's the guy that's been fantasy QB1 for over a decade. You just plug him and play him, but he's not that guy anymore. The wide receivers are always in and out with injuries. They haven't had a full wide receiver group pretty much all year. So, and against Dallas's defense, which is elite, it probably might even be the best defense in the league, honestly, which I hate to say as an Eagles fan, but I really think it's just a bad matchup for them. They don't have anyone on the outside that's going to scare Dallas. And I really think, right after their bye week, they've had time to prepare for this game, and they want revenge for, Aaron Rodgers kicking him out of the playoffs, a couple of times. So I think they're going to do everything they can, honestly, to embarrass him. So I really, if you look for any other option, if you have Rodgers and you're planning on starting him, look elsewhere.
Actually, if this game were in Dallas, I would be utterly frightened for Aaron Rodgers, because on the turf, Micah Parsons would just be flying into there. Let's go to my backyard, SoFi Stadium. The Rams are hosting the Arizona Cardinals, 2 teams that are just going weird directions. The Rams are 3-point favorites, 43-point over/under. Matthew Stafford is in the concussion protocol, so it's looking like John Wolford.
Womp.
Oh,
my Scott Fishbowl team hates that news.
Oh man, it's painful. It's painful. I mean, why? Because of Cooper Kupp, or
both? I have Kupp and Stafford, so it hurts both ways.
Oh well, maybe Wolford will feed them. Yeah, I think the Rams, on the Rams side, I think it's only Cooper Kupp. I mean, honestly, the running backs have a good matchup, but they're spreading it out so thin between the running backs that nobody's going to get enough usage. So I just don't know who to recommend there.
Yeah, I can't. If I had to pull my arm and pick one, I pick Henderson, because he's getting some carries. But they've just been so inconsistent, game over game, that it just doesn't seem like the Rams know what they're doing in terms of their running game. So in terms of on the Rams side on this game, I'm only trusting Cooper Kupp in fantasy.
Yeah.
Unless you're desperate for running back, then play Henderson.
And on the other side, you're going to have DeAndre Hopkins. He's not going to match up every the whole game against Jalen Ramsey, but we've seen him kind of sneak into the slot a little bit. I think it's an interesting setup for him. The targets have been there. I mean, he only got 5 targets last week, but the previous 2 games he had targets in the teens. I mean, I like Hopkins. I'm starting Hopkins, but not with a lot of not with a lot of confidence. I mean, maybe he gets him 90 to 100 yards, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to start him. Honestly, you're not going to sit Hopkins in this matchup no matter what. But I expect, a decent game, not like a huge game by his standards, probably somewhere around, between 12 and 16 fantasy points. So nothing, crazy good, but still solid enough where you're not going to regret, playing him.
All right, we got 2 more games to go through. And this next one, Chargers at 49ers in San Francisco, 7-point favorites for the 49ers, 45.5-point over/under. You still got Justin Herbert. He's looking better, but you got to figure he's still kind of favoring those ribs. I think this is another game where it's the running backs are going to be the showcase. Austin Eckler, he's going to have to do his damage in the passing game because the Chargers, I mean the 49ers are only allowing 77 rushing yards per game to the running back position, while the Browns, the game against the Browns is the only game where Eckler went over 60 yards. So I think he's going to have to get some catches, 37 targets in the last 3 games. I think he could do some damage still that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the best wide receiver that the Chargers have had all year has been Austin Eckler.
Yeah.
he with Keenan Allen being hurt, he's going to be relied upon again in the passing game, and that's great for fantasy because that's where he's going to get most of his points, which he's done all year. Like you said, he hasn't been doing it rushing the ball. He's been doing it catching the ball, and that's going to continue in this game because you don't run against the 49ers defense. No one does. Especially with the wide receivers being hurt, they can focus more attention to Eckler in the running game. So I don't expect him to run, but I still expect him to have a solid game overall, just based on the amount of targets he's going to get.
Yeah, and on the other side, CMC. I mean, run CMC. He's, in just his second game, he really just has become ingrained in that offense. He ran 18 of 23 run plays. I think it's one of the. I mean, this is a smash spot for him because the Chargers, if it weren't for the Texans, the Chargers would be the worst running defense in the NFL.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, this isn't rocket science. You're playing Christian McCaffrey. This is not like news to anyone. So I expect him to. A lot of people thought there was going to be an adjustment period. When he got traded there in a couple of weeks, but you plugged him right in and off he went. So there really isn't. There shouldn't be any concern at all to starting and like you said, it's going to be between CMC and Barkley for the number 1 spot this week for running backs, and Henry.
Yep. Yeah, they're going to be fighting it out. They're going to be fighting it out. There might be with maybe Saquon and Dameon Pierce kind of wanting to say, hey, we'll get in on this too. Monday Night Football. It's very it's a nice coincidence that Washington and Philadelphia to close it out. You being Eagle Dan, the Eagles are 11-point favorites, 44 point over under. Yeah, I want to ask you.
Yeah,
the Philadelphia is known for being kind of angst ridden about its
understatement.
Fans. How are you feeling being a front runner?
It's good. I enjoy it, but I think the key for me personally is just appreciate how good they're playing without being like, we're in first place. Everyone else sucks. F everyone else. I'm not going to be like that because 8-0 is great. Don't get me wrong, but they don't hand out trophies for 8-0. Yep. That's something that and most of the Philadelphia's fan base now, with how well we're doing, is we're expecting, to go to the playoffs and make some noise. So that's really, where the focus should be, I think. But at least for me, it's just about the end goal. If they keep winning, obviously I want them to keep winning. I don't want them to lose a game, but it's not realistic for them to win every single game. And I know that. Being a front runner, it's awesome because everyone doesn't believe in us anyway. Apparently, we've never played anybody this year. All the teams we played have sucked. We're going to get bounced in the first round of the playoffs. So no matter what happens, whether we lose or we win, it doesn't we get treated the same way. So whatever. So I just think it's fun in a way because we are rarely in this position. But I just think with the way the team is and the way how Jalen Hurts, leads the team, I just don't think there isn't that whole flashy bit of, we're the front runner and we're just better than everyone that usually comes with this. So that lets me enjoy it a little more.
Exactly. And with the Phillies, having gone to the World Series unexpectedly, I think it's a good time to be a Philadelphia fan.
I still can't believe that we got there. It's how did that happen?
I can't either, but we're still dealing with it out here on the West Coast. On this game, I don't know if there's anybody I can like on the Commanders. The Eagles beat them up in Washington last time with, and we'll talk about Jalen Hurts, what he did, and I don't think. There's the narrative that if there's any way to attack the Eagles, it's on the ground, but I don't like the running game for the Commanders. So Taylor Heineke Taylor Heineke, the game's going to be in his hands, and I just don't think it's. I think it's scary for them. I think it's downgrading Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Damian Pierce showed it. When he ran all over us on Thursday Night Football. The way to get to the Eagles is by rushing the ball. But like you said, the Commanders haven't, Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson haven't been consistent enough where you can totally rely on either of them. And with the two really good cornerbacks we have on the team, it's tougher to go against McLaurin and Samuel as well. I mean, if you have them, you have to play them almost because they're still who they are. But I would not expect them to have as good of a game as they usually would, because one thing we do really well is defend the pass. That's pretty much what our entire defense is based off of. That's why everyone can run against us. So I wouldn't expect the Washington, skill players at receiver to have really good games.
Oh yeah. Well, on the other side, it's Jalen Hurts.
Knock on wood.
went for 340 yards and 3 touchdowns last game. Didn't have to run much. Now he's at home, and I know the Washington has been pretty stingy against quarterbacks. Only 205 yards, 205.6 passing yards per game, but they haven't really faced any prolific passers during that one. I mean, Cousins and Rodgers in good matchups. I think this is another. I mean, this is going to be another showcase game like the Minnesota game. But you mentioned, Devonta Smith. I mean, he went for 8 and 169 and 1 against them last time. Kind of quiet recently. I know we talked about, we had the choice last week, but could this be an encore? Or there's really just no way to predict who's going to be the guy who goes off.
Yeah, I think there could be. The thing that I've noticed with the Eagles offense is out of, Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith, and A.J. Brown, 2 out of those 3 usually have good games every week. It just depends on which 2. Like last week, it was A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert. And then, the past Washington game, it was Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. So it's really like a roll of the dice. I do think that Devontae Smith will have a solid game. I don't know. I don't think he's going to repeat the game he had against them last time. I think that Jalen Hurts has been, on a tear with A.J. Brown more recently, and that's going to continue against the Washington defense. But I think that Devontae Smith will have a better game than he's had recently. I think that they will use him more, throw him a couple more passes than he's had. He only scored 7 and, like I said, 7 and 4 points the past 2 games. So I expect it to be a little bit better than that, but I don't think it's going to reach the heights that he did the last time they played.
Yeah, awesome. Well, mi amigo, we got through the slate.
All right,
through all the games, every single. I love it. I was hoping to get it under an hour, but we got chatty. It's what happens when amigos get together.
That's right, yeah.
But please, let's give one more shout out to Champions Round. Let's get out, go to the App Store, find Champions Round, create an account, start using it. Using it. Anything else you want to shout out?
Yeah, just go download the app, give it a try. I think a lot of the hesitation with people is, having to spend money to enjoy the game. But most of our games they're free options as well. So you can go, go dip your feet in the water, see how much you like it, and then you can start playing and trying to win some money, because that's what we're trying to do. Really, we're trying to give the people money, and I think everyone likes money. So let us, give you money. Is basically what we're trying to do here. Help us help you.
Yes, and remember, Familia, the first one's always free. So. Yeah. Oh man. Oh, so please follow, please, Familia. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us. The people who threw in comments in the chat. Let's also make sure that you're following Dan at Eagle Dan FF and at Champions Round. Just the way it sounds. Please make sure to follow that. Dan, anything else you want to give a shout out to?
I just want to give a shout out to you. Honestly, I think this is a fantastic show, and you're an excellent host. And I always love, coming and talking about zero RB or whatever it is. So it's really been always an honor to come on and host with you. And you do such a great job. I even watch the show even when I'm not on. So just keep on killing it, Jorge. You're doing great.
Gracias, amigo. And we got to do another. We're gonna have to do another zero RB in the off season.
It's yearly now. I mean, we have to come back every year. It's yearly. I mean, me and Cal have to come back and we have to talk about it.
And I think we might have to get Kevin on there too. So
yeah,
just
absolutely. Bring Kevin along. Absolutely.
Fearsome foursome. So we'll do that one. So familia, thank you again to our invitado de lujo, Dan Turner. Muchas gracias, and thank you all for joining us. Please make sure you're giving us a like and subscribe on YouTube. Also, make sure you're downloading the Champions Round app. Otra vez, when you're going to fantasypoints.com, 22 Familia 10 gets you 10% off the promo code. Use the promo code 22 Familia 10 and get 10% off the price that's already been reduced by 25%. You can find me at Jorge Martin 17 on Twitter. Make sure I'm going to have an article coming out on this tomorrow with all of a little bit more detail. And just keep following everything they've got. We're going to have more and more stuff coming out. It's going to be awesome. Familia, thank you again for joining us. And remember, todos somos familia. Salud.
See ya.